Is an individual influenced by their circumstances, or are their actions the result of their own decisions? Does the proverb, "Everything we have in life we have earned or permitted," hold true? What are your thoughts? On a dreary evening in March 2010, paramedics were sent to a home in Escambia County, Florida. A 19-year-old woman was subjected to a horrible attack. Her injuries were so severe that her skin had blackened and was virtually peeling off her body. Despite her current condition, she was able to recognize the fiends who had savaged her in this way. Welcome to Unseen True Crime Stories headquarters. I want to thank you, my viewers, and especially my subscribers, for your ongoing support as we strive to develop and bring you fresh and untold true crime stories every day. Please remember to subscribe to this channel. Let's get started. Tina Lasagna Brown was born in July 1970 to Lily and Willie Coleman, who married at a young age. Tina's brother, Willie Coleman Jr., was born barely 11 months after her birth. Due to their immaturity, the young parents emphasized socializing above caring for their children. The youngsters were regularly left alone at home or taken to visit with relatives on weekends. Despite the small age difference, Tina took on the responsibility of caring for Willie Jr. She cared for her brother, cooked meals, helped him with academics, escorted him to and from school, and took him home after lessons. Willie Sr. joined a gang and earned a fortune selling illegal substances. In mid-1982, he severely beat his wife, Lily, and she refused to live with him under the same roof. She grabbed her possessions, filed for divorce, and fled, leaving her 2 children in the hands of their dictatorial father and making no effort to maintain touch. Willie Sr. continued in selling white powder spray from their home. But once Lily left, he started violently beating his daughter. Tina sought safety with her paternal grandma after being repeatedly harassed by an adult guy. The girl felt safe and chose to report Willie Sr.'s assault. Instead of getting assistance, the old mother became enraged with the adolescent and exiled her from the home, stating that her son would never indulge in such conduct and preventing Tina from being in her company. With nowhere else to go, the girl returned to her father's home, where the attacks continued. Coleman Sr. then married Melinda, an aggressive and promiscuous woman, over the desires of the whole family. The violence from her father stopped, but Willie Sr. became unsatisfied with his new wife's adultery, finding her in the arms of other men many times. The home was engulfed by chaos, anger, drink, and illegal drugs. The father and stepmother engaged in them, even exposing Tina to the effects of psychoactive medicines. Melinda then forced her stepdaughter into sleeping with guys to acquire money for drink and amusement by using her youthful body. Several years later, the FBI initiated an investigation into Willie Sr.'s gang activities, which resulted in his imprisonment and a year in jail. Tina lived briefly with her mother at this time. However, owing to the stringent regulations in Lily's family, continual disagreements ensued between them, ending in the girl being sent out on the streets once again. Tina moved in with her aunt. The teenager's upbringing was so erratic and unstable that she struggled in school, switching between many educational institutions over the course of 4 years. Although Tina eventually received her certificate, it did not undo the years of cruelty and degradation she had experienced. Lacking a permanent domicile and struggling with drug addiction as a result of her evil stepmother, Melinda, the girl found herself in a doubtful place shared by other young people in similar situations. Tina met Greg Miller, another person fighting synthetic chemical addiction. Despite the tumultuous nature of their relationship, they stayed together for a lengthy time. The lady gave birth to 2 children, but the youngsters suffered from a variety of diseases as a result of their mother's lifestyle. Tina split from Greg during her 3rd pregnancy and was sent to a rehabilitation center, where she gave birth to her 3rd child, Brittany Miller. Rather than putting her children in foster care, Tina opted to seek addiction treatment. She gave up her first 2 babies to her mother, Lily, for adoption and was able to keep Brittany after rehabilitation. The lady worked hard to be a caring mother and stayed away from drugs and alcohol for 4 years. Tina had been denied of love and attention from her parents throughout her childhood, as well as a carefree adolescence, so she vowed to do all she could to protect her own children. Tina found a new boyfriend and married him. But after the wedding, she received sad news. Her spouse had been caught and imprisoned for trafficking and distributing illegal substances. Tina found work as a bartender and once again met a young guy who piqued her interest. It seems that the lady was unconsciously attracted to guys linked with the lifestyle she had abandoned, as if tempted. Despite Tina's best efforts, her relationship with this guy was fraught with disagreements that escalated into violence and continual humiliation. The lady was able to break free from this tyranny when her spouse was also imprisoned. Tina, on the other hand, struggled to manage her life and eventually found herself without any assistance. In desperation, she wrote bogus checks, which led to her arrest and criminal prosecution. As a result, the lady went to exotic dancing to get some money. During this era, she relapsed, succumbing to drug misuse, bogus checks, promiscuous encounters, and another arrest. Tina was ordered to receive therapy by the court in 2005, when she was 35. She worked hard to make a decent life and eventually found work as an assistant manager at a catering firm. Everything seemed to be going well until another attack of sadness and breakdown happened. Tina decided to restart her life in the summer of 2009. She moved to Pensacola, Florida, where she worked at a bakery and lived with her daughter, Brittany Miller, in a mobile home park. However, the revenue was inadequate to pay their costs, so Tina gradually started giving personal services in return for cash. Her closest friend, Heather's husband, was one of her frequent customers. Tina Brown and Brittany Miller first formed a tight friendship with their neighbors, Heather Lee, 27, and Audreanna Zimmerman, 19. Audreanna Zimmerman was born on April 13, 1990, and spent her childhood and adolescence in obscurity. She most recently lived in a mobile home park near Pensacola, Escambia County, Florida. Despite her early age of 19, she already had 2 children, Trinity, who is 2, and David, who is 3. As a single mother, she encountered financial difficulties since raising and nurturing children needed substantially more resources than living alone, and she had no one to turn to for assistance. When her partners proved untrustworthy, she sought help from her closest neighbors. Heather Lee and 39-year-old Tina Brown, together with her adolescent daughter, 16-year-old Brittany Miller, provided a lifeline for the young mother to some degree. Unfortunately, living in such an atmosphere leaves a lasting impression on a person. Individuals choose to live in mobile homes for a variety of reasons, the most of which are negative. In the lack of stability and a supporting social group, conflicts between neighbors may go beyond verbal altercations and become violent. Commonplace confrontations often escalate into something sinister, since people who live such a lifestyle may demonstrate complete loss of control over their actions, which is common in this milieu. At the time, the 4 neighbors' relationships were quite tumultuous. Minor squabbles that evolved into violent altercations could not nurture the growth of a solid relationship. Grievances piled up, allegations against one another escalated, and at times the fights were so heated that police intervention was required. The bulk of the disagreements were between guys. Audreanna was furious with Tina. During one of the neighbors' disagreements, claimed to the Florida Department of Children and Families that Audreanna was not providing proper care for her children. Audreanna was fully aware of the dangers of the guardianship authority interfering with her personal life. This would ultimately lead to inspections by the authorities, and if anything was found to be unacceptable, the children might be simply removed from her care, which was every parent's greatest fear. Audreanna had just lately considered Tina her closest friend, which made the situation all the more heartbreaking. For obvious reasons, the young mother became enraged, and the neighbors were once again immersed in strife. The issue of the disagreement had now expanded beyond children's upbringing to include petty grudges and resentments, and the most terrifying feature was that they were snowballing by the minute. Heather Lee, the 3rd neighbor, tried multiple times to serve as a mediator between them, but her efforts were useless. Audreanna accused Tina of interfering in matters unrelated to her own, as she blamed her for Audreanna's boyfriend's detention. Tina also reportedly damaged her car's glass. Naturally, Tina did not keep mute in response. She reacted with a statement that the young neighbor had previously slashed her vehicle tires, forcing her to retaliate by shattering the glass. The most recent fight between the ex-friends was over Brittany's boyfriend. Tina's 16-year-old daughter realized that Audreanna had slept with her boyfriend, and as soon as the chance for vengeance arose, the girl approached Audreanna and tried to hit her. In retaliation, Audreanna used a stun gun. This event was exceptionally serious, even for a mobile home park, and emphasized the area's overall well-being. Audreanna and Brittany had regular conflicts. Despite the fact that one of the females was a mother of two, both were practically teens. Neither of them had the capacity to manage their emotions and outbreaks of wrath, so Heather Lee, their neighbor, was often called in to intercede and break up confrontations. When Tina realized that her kid had been abused with a stun gun, she became enraged and decided not to let the atrocity go unpunished. There was an obvious course of action to take in this situation. Contact the police. Brown, who had been abused by her father and stepmother as a youngster, was not one to forgive crimes. She resolved to take things into her own hands and demand payback. The stun gun incident remained unresolved for many days. Both mother and daughter's minds remained focused on exacting vengeance on Audreanna. Tina summoned Audreanna to her trailer on March 24, 2010, with the intention of establishing a ceasefire and rekindling their relationship. She determined to lay aside her complaints and terminate the dispute. Audreanna was pleased. She had been feeling very secluded in her mobile home. She honestly thought that it was time to stop arguing and fighting over small problems, since they had managed to preserve a relationship and support each other for a while. Thus, the young lady decided to visit the trailer, unknowing of the trap she was about to fall into. Tina, Heather, Brittany, and her 13-year-old friend Mallory were already gathered in the home, waiting for Audreanna to arrive. Brown determined to use the same weapon that the neighbor had used on her daughter. She had planned ahead of time to hide a stun pistol behind one of the cupboards. Brittany warned her companion that they meant to face Audreanna for all of the transgressions committed against them, and that if Mallory disclosed this knowledge to anybody, she would be demonstrating Brittany's premeditation. While it is conceivable that Audreanna had an intimate connection with Brittany's boyfriend, neglected her children, and played petty pranks on her neighbors, she was only 19 years old and did not deserve to die. Unaware, Audreanna went to the adjoining trailer at 9 p.m. and within minutes found herself slumped on the ground after numerous stun gun hits. Unbelievable, excruciating anguish penetrated her whole existence, immobilizing her muscles and sending her into complete dread. The realization that she was completely unprotected and powerless drove the child to scream out. Audreanna cried for help, knowing that something very awful was going to happen. Heather Lee intervened, but she was supporting the tormentors rather than the sufferer. The neighbor shoved a dirty sock into Audreanna's mouth to quiet her, while Brittany gave a hard smack to her face. Following that, the hostage was carried outside and placed into the vehicle's trunk. Tina got behind the wheel, while her daughter and neighbor Heather sat in the back seat. Mallory, 13 years old, stayed in the trailer. After driving about a mile and a half from the mobile home park, the ladies arrived to a large glade in a wooded area. Audreanna, laying unconscious in the trunk, realized that if she didn't get out quickly, the situation may end terribly for her. Audreanna ran away from the group as soon as the trunk was unlocked. She had already began to exult at having escaped in time when, as fate would have it, she slipped on a tree root and fell to the ground. It was already dark, and Audreanna was in a hurry, so she didn't see the impediment in her route. Tina and Brittany quickly caught up with her and began the attack right there. The mother again used a stun gun, while her daughter grabbed a crowbar. They then traded weapons, enabling them to harass their powerful neighbor in a variety of ways. Clearly, these activities delighted the two ladies. When Brittany lost control of the tool, she smacked Audreanna with her fist with such force that her finger cracked. Meanwhile, Tina walked to the vehicle's trunk, pulled out a gasoline canister, and returned to the neighbor's battered, prone, but still awake body. Tina could obviously see Audrianna's injuries and how afraid she was, but she felt it was inadequate. Although Audrianna's future actions were incomparable to what they were doing now, Tina soaked Audrianna's body with gasoline, lit a lighter, and set her on fire. And then, all three assailants watched as the fire blazed. The girl screamed in anguish, and her flesh scorched. Brittany even bounced up and down with enthusiasm, shouting, "Burn!" It's tough to imagine how someone could be happy seeing such a dreadful, agonizing event. Most people have empathy and compassion, but Brittany Miller seems to be an exception. Audrianna stayed conscious even as the flames engulfed her body. She lay prone as the flammable liquid was poured over her. During the height of her agony, she began rolling on the ground, attempting to relieve her pain, while Heather, Tina, and Brittany casually exited their car and returned to their home, awaiting their neighbor's quick end. Brittany recounted leaving various goods at the area, including a taser and a pair of her sports shoes, while returning to their mobile home. She alerted her mother, but Tina insisted they wouldn't return. She wanted to create some distance between them and the real attack. Tina was unaware that the abandoned objects would be used as primary proof of their involvement. She was just incapable of making clear arguments. Despite the women's claims that they had precisely planned and analyzed every aspect, their actions revealed chaos and a complete lack of control over the situation. Perhaps they doubted that nobody would be worried about Audreanna Zimmerman's fate or explain why she died. Why should others be concerned about her absence if her nearest neighbors treated her as a disposable item, dumped her as trash, and burned her? Their underestimating of the girl's identity resulted in the eventual outcome. Despite the awful, life-threatening wounds, Audrianna managed to douse the flames, rise, and walk almost a mile to the next dwelling. This home belongs to Terrence Hendrick. That night, he was about to rest early when he believed he heard a faint voice in the yard asking for help. Terrence stared out the window, but couldn't see anybody in the darkness. Intrigued by the unexpected guest, the guy walked onto the porch and stared into the distance. After adjusting his eyes to the lack of light, Hendrick saw the shadow of someone approaching him. The mysterious person walked slowly. Terrence instantly recognized that someone was in difficulty and was seeking to get assistance. This person was severely damaged. It was incredible that the homeowner heard the voice at all, given that he was now standing just feet away from the stranger outdoors and couldn't understand a word. It was discovered to be Audreanna Zimmerman. Despite her suffering, the girl murmured to him to call 911 before collapsing on the porch. Hendrick took the phone and sat down near her on the stairs while the girl swayed from side to side, arms stretched in front of her. He phoned 911 and notified the operator that a lady in need of emergency care had just emerged from the woods near his house. Terrence saw she had a major head injury when they waited on the porch, waiting for the paramedics. The girl's body looked to be completely black, and it was hard to tell whether she was wearing any clothes since her skin was indistinguishable from the fabric. She emanated a pungent stench of burning and gasoline. If you like this video, please remember to subscribe to the channel. It is very important. The sight of such terrible burns surprised the arriving rescue professionals. To their dismay, they discovered that their powers were unable to ease Audrianna's pain in any manner. According to preliminary estimations, around 90% of her body was badly burnt. Her skin was flaking away like a burnt piece of paper. She suffered a severe head injury, and her jaw was either shattered or dislocated. The doctors tried to treat the skin with oxygen and apply a sterile bandage, but owing to the severity of the burns, they didn't have enough materials to cover the whole body. It was also hard to support her neck since the skin started to crumble at the slightest contact. It's unimaginable that Audrianna could travel such a long distance with such severe burns. It's difficult to imagine how much anguish she went through. Despite her injuries, Audrianna remained alive and communicated to some degree. She had one purpose in mind: to notify those who had done this to her. The girl was aware that she may lose her mind at any time, so she managed to supply the ambulance physician with all of the facts, knowing that her days were short and that she needed time to care for her children and bring the culprits to justice. The child said she was stun-gunned, taken out of the home, and bashed in the head with a crowbar before being doused in gasoline and set on fire. She also revealed the names and addresses of all people who tormented her, as well as a plea for safety for her children. Even in this state, Audreanna was thinking about her children. This clearly identified her as a compassionate mother, and despite her several faults in life, her love for Trinity and David remained constant. While being transferred to the hospital, the girl continuously pleaded the doctors if they could rescue her, explaining that she walked to the trailer where the trap was waiting for her in order to reconcile with the neighbors. Unfortunately, the physicians were unable to guarantee the impossible, but they told Audreanna that they would try all they could. Audreanna's health was stabilized at the local hospital. After inducing an artificial coma, the sufferer was transported to the University of South Alabama Burn Center in Mobile. The detectives arrived at the site very quickly. They quickly located the forested area where Audreanna was attacked. The police spotted the remnants of a fire as they traveled from Terrence's home, where the girl sought aid, down a gravel road. There were plenty of clues: white sneakers, a piece of hair, a crowbar, and a stun gun. There was also a puddle of blood, a piece of paper with red blotches, and the remains of burned garments. While the medics worked to save Audreanna's life and the police looked for proof of the crime, Tina, Brittany, and Heather went to Tina's house, where 13-year-old Mallory awaited them. They removed their bleeding garments and shoes and hid them in a trash bag. Brittany told her buddy that she had broken her arm while assaulting Audreanna, so they borrowed her mother's vehicle and drove to the hospital. Meanwhile, Tina tossed the bag containing the bloodied garments into a trash. When the detectives arrived at the trailer park, they found two ladies in Heather Lee's home and took them to the sheriff's office for interrogation. They caught Brittany shortly after she returned from the hospital. Tina stated she had spent the night watching movies at her friend Heather's place, and that she and Audreanna had mended the night before due to a misunderstanding. But this was the normal environment of a trailer park, where neighbors sometimes quarreled and even fought among themselves. Tina, feeling something was wrong, started to insinuate that Heather Lee regularly verbally abused Audreanna, something she had observed. When asked to retell the events of that night, Tina said that she had spent the whole night watching movies until the cops came in the morning and asked her to accompany them to the station. Heather and Tina were interviewed individually. The lady denied any participation in Audreanna's attack and said she was preparing fish at home that night. Tina apparently paid her a visit before returning to her own home, when she behaved strangely, pointing to the window and claiming that the police had come at the park. The cops tried to turn the two neighbors against one another, but they never acknowledged anything. After being photographed and submitting a DNA sample for examination, they were both released. Tina Brown's car was confiscated by police on March 26th for forensic investigation. Inside, they discovered few droplets of blood that were eventually recognized as Audreanna's. Audreanna's DNA was found on the crowbar, the stun gun handle, and the shoes left at the scene that belonged to Brittany Miller. A strand of hair had fallen out of Tina's haircut. During this time, Tina phoned her friend Palomi and told her what they had done to Adrian. Tina was aware that Audreanna was still alive and in the hospital, so she asked Pamela if she could finish what they had begun by sending her to the other world. Pamela refused, then contacted authorities to report the discussion. The police now had all of the necessary evidence to pursue charges. On April 9, 2010, Tina, Brittany, and Heather were arrested. This happened on the same day that Audreanna Zimmerman sadly died from her injuries. The young lady fought for her life for 16 days after the horrible assault. The pathologist conducted an autopsy to ascertain the main cause of death, which was discovered to be several thermal burns. The only parts of the body unaffected by the fire were the right ankle and calf. The coroner also identified many blunt force injuries and a cut on the right side of the head, which resulted in internal hemorrhage. Heather Lee pled guilty to a second-degree crime in 2011 and reached an agreement with the police. She testified against Tina and Brittany to avoid receiving a worse penalty herself. During questioning, the lady sobbed as she revealed how nicely she treated Audreanna and how worried she was for her well-being. Heather testified in court, claiming that their objective was just to physically teach Audreanna a lesson, but the event quickly spiraled out of hand. Heather did not engage in the attack. She was an unwilling witness who tried to interfere. It all started with a fight between Tina and Audreanna and ended with a fire in the forest. In return for her confession, Heather Lee was sentenced to 25 years in jail. Tina, on the other hand, maintained her own account, claiming that she had spent the night watching movies and so faced a jury trial. Tina Brown's trial began in June 2012. Several others testified as witnesses, including Tina's cellmate, to whom she confided and told the narrative of Audreanna's slaughter. Mallory, Brittany's companion who was inside the trailer during the incident, was also summoned. The girl shared what she was scared to tell even her closest ones, since she was terrified by a similar destiny. Mallory said Tina was the most nasty and forceful of the three assaults. She dreaded this lady the most after seeing the incident. She really scared for her life. Tina's attorneys sought to emphasize Tina's difficult upbringing, which was characterized by deprivation. They stressed that childhood traumas had far-reaching effects for her life. The defense was able to collect witness evidence from the defendant's kids, her brother, and other relatives. However, a medical test proved that Tina behaved consciously and coherently throughout the crime. No mental diseases capable of clouding the mind and shutting off the intellect were discovered in her. The lady knew exactly what she was doing and had no inner anguish. Following deliberation, the jury convicted Tina Brown guilty of a first-degree crime and recommended the death penalty. Their view was unequivocal, especially given the nasty, vicious, and cruel character of the crime. It was claimed that the aggravating conditions exceeded the mitigating ones. Tina Brown apologized to Audreanna's family and acknowledged to taking her life, which she did not deserve. Despite the fact that 3 people took part in the Audreanna atrocity, they were all in separate positions. Brittany Miller was under the age of 18 when the offense occurred. She was not eligible for the death penalty under the legislation, thus she was sentenced to life in prison. The sentence may be challenged after 15 years in jail. This does not guarantee that she will ever be freed, but she does have the option to reassess her life and start again, unlike her mother, Tina Brown, who taught her daughter to be like herself. This marks the conclusion of the narrative. Like the video and share your ideas in the comments. See you soon.